Yes, I'm still here, Hollywood. Just ahead on today's episode. What about John Belushi? How did his death impact you? Were you surprised?
I can't say I was surprised. He seemed indestructible. We all knew his weaknesses, but you just felt, not like that.
How did it impact Hollywood at the time?
I think we were stupid, back in the late 70s and early 80s, cocaine was everywhere.
Hey, you directed Meghan Markle.
Yes. Yeah.
And?
She was great. I mean, she was lovely. I believe she was engaged at the time to someone, and she,
Someone other than Harry? In 1978, movie theaters were packed to the gills with box office blockbusters. The top three movies were Grease, Superman, and an unlikely raunchy hit about a troublemaking fraternity. That film was National Lampoon's Animal House. Besides the other breakout stars like John Belushi, Kevin Bacon, and Tom Hulce, there was one smooth-talking frat boy with a twinkle in his eye who stole every scene he was in. This is Still Here Hollywood. I'm Steve Kmetko. Join me with today's guest, Otter, from National Lampoon's Animal House, actor, director, and now author, Tim Matheson. If you'd like to be more involved with us at Still Here Hollywood, you definitely can. Just visit patreon.com/stillherehollywood. You can support us for as little as $3 a month. Then you can see who our upcoming guests will be and submit questions for them. You can even tell us what stars you want us to have on as guests. You'll also get exclusive behind-the-scenes info, pics, video, and more. Again, that's patreon.com/stillherehollywood. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Steve.
What were you doing today before you came in to do our little program here?
I was actually working out, and actually it was the first day I'm back to working out. Too much information here. I just had my knee replaced, half knee replaced, and it's in great shape, and so I was exercising that. Got on a bike, and
everybody's doing it.
I know. It's amazing because it's a computer. They take a CT scan, computer designs the implant, and then they implant it. I'm not sure if the computer does it or what, or a robot does it, but it's great.
And when you completely heal, will you be the $6 million man?
I think so. And I will set off alarms when I go into the airport.
Oh, really?
I'm told, yeah.
Did they give you one of those little things? My father had some kind of an implant for his heart.
Right.
And he used to carry some kind of a little card when he went through airport security.
I got to make sure I get that, yeah.
There's so much to talk to you about. First of all, you were on Leave It to Beaver. Speaking of television.
Yes. When I got that, I was what I used to call the third kid through the door. I mean, because there was always the kid who was the sort of co-star of the show and his good pal, and then there was the other kid, and that was me. I was the third kid through the door. I mean, I started just, I had a line here and a line there, and then I got a couple of lines here and a couple of lines there, and then I came to Universal Studios, and it was Review Television at the time, which was their TV arm at Universal, and auditioned for Leave It to Beaver, and got the part, and it was a recurring part. It was going to come back several episodes, and I've never felt so comfortable and greeted warmly as I did on that show, and because it was about the kids, and the parents were lovely. Hugh Beaumont and
Barbara Billingsley.
Barbara Billingsley, yes, and I worked with her again later on. Thank you. And I went to a party at Jerry Mather's house, and I thought, man, I have arrived. This is it. It's like going to the Playboy Mansion. But it was great. And then I must say, not too long ago, I saw an episode that I had done, and it was so well directed and so cleverly directed, that they had the three of us playing and walking down the street, and it was just done in one shot, probably 3 or 4 pages of dialogue. And instead of just kids walking and talking, we were playing some game, jumping on a curb, jumping off the curb into the street, jumping up in the sidewalk, walking, and it was I just thought that was really smart directing, because we weren't acting. We were just being kids playing a game. And so that show was a real learning thing, working with directors like that, who knew how to not make kids just stand there and just be stupid and say the lines badly, So it was great. It was a great learning experience.
Somebody who was really good with kids, a director, is Spielberg. The screen test exists where the little kid who was in E.T., Justin Henry? No.
Henry Thomas, was it?
Henry Thomas.
Right?
Justin Henry was Kramer versus Kramer. Henry Thomas. There's the screen test exists somewhere, and you can hear Spielberg talking to him, and the tears come, and he was so good. You worked with him, before he was him. Are you surprised at all with all he's accomplished?
No, I think I worked with him on 1941, and he had just done. He was like the hottest guy in town. He had done Jaws and Close Encounters, and it was like, how could this not work? And it's not his sweet spot. I don't think comedy, like that, a broad comedy, and but he was so gracious and so wonderful to me because he shared with me all of his drawings and all of the sketches for the characters. He even asked me, oddly, I had just finished doing I'd done Animal House, it hadn't come out yet. I was broke. I got offered a Disney movie called The Apple Dumpling Gang Rides Again with Don Knotts and Tim Conway, which I took, and I said, this is not going to do one way or the other with my career, but I have to get paid here. And Tim Conway was just so fun to work with, and he just spent all his time trying to make Don Knotts laugh, and he did. Don would break up in every scene. But Stephen found me in Las Vegas. I was driving back from Kanab, Utah, stopped in Vegas, checked into a hotel, and I don't know how the next morning my phone rings and it says, "We have Steven Spielberg for you." And I was like, okay, oh, that's fine. I don't know how in the world he found me. And then he said, yeah, I've been doing this movie. I really want you to be in it. And I have 2 parts, and you get your choice of which one you want to play. And I was like, wow, okay. And I chose Loomis Burkhead, which was, so all of my scenes were with Nancy. The other one was just a cluster of guys running around doing funny stuff, the main theme of the movie. But I just wanted to do something that was closer to real, and Stephen was he was wonderful. He's he would ask me for suggestions. If you have any shots you want to tell me about it, and I'd suggest a shot. He said, let's do that. So he was wonderful. He was just a big kid too.
Yeah. Still is, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Of all the people you've encountered, and we haven't touched on them all yet, I'm going all over the place because I feel like I've got a treasure chest here in you.
I'll follow your lead.
A human treasure chest, and I just want to dig through it. Of all the people you've worked with, who made the biggest impression on you?
Lucille Ball.
Really?
Oh yeah, Lucy. She was the most powerful woman in Hollywood. She was the #1 star on television, and I've never heard anybody else talk about this. She was the first female executive of a studio. She and Desi formed Desilu Productions, and then they started buying up. They made so much money. They started producing shows and buying up lots. They bought the old RKO studio lot, which became part of Paramount. They bought a studio lot on Cahuenga Boulevard. They bought the old Selznick studio over there by MGM on Culver Boulevard. And those were all Desilu. And she was so involved in the casting of that part and so helpful to me in getting the part. And then she would make time for me during the day, and she'd invite me in. She had a big trailer on the stage. She said, come on, let's talk. And I'd go in her trailer, and while she'd get made up or talk, and she would give me advice about the business and about acting, but to just watch her, how precise she was, and how perfect she was about the work she did, and how seriously she took it. And She also taught me another great lesson. I did a couple of years after that. I did Here's Lucy, and I played the boyfriend of Lucy Arnaz, who was her daughter in the show, and the two of them starred in it. And we were backstage, and Lucy was great. And a lot of the Bob Hope and Gleason, a lot of those stars were great because they would hire old vaudeville friends who weren't doing well and give them a day's here, a day pay there, because they make their enough money to make their health insurance. And so this lady had a one-line part. It was an old pal of Lucy's from vaudeville. Gail Gordon and me. Gail Gordon was one of the stars of the show from Armis Brooks, and he and I are standing backstage with Lucy. And this woman is getting ready to go out and make her entrance through a door and then go out. And the stage was out there, and we're all backstage. And Lucy goes, $20, she blows her line to Gail. I just thought, oh God, that's so mean. And because I was so sensitive. And I realized, and the woman went out, nailed it, came back, and gave Lucy a little, yeah, there you go. And I realized acting and making movies in Hollywood, it's a full contact sport. And you got to be ready to take the hit. And that's, I think, the biggest lesson I got from her, because Lucy was tough. She was tough. I mean, she didn't care if it was a 6-year-old who blew his line or a 60-year-old, and just she talked like that. She had this smoker's voice, and just always rehearse with your props, and it was like, okay, Lucy. But I mean, she was the gold standard for me, and couldn't have been. She didn't go out of her way to be extra nice, but because it was work. You were there at work. But when you stepped off stage and backstage, and she'd say, how you doing? I married Jennifer Leake for a short time, who was in Yours, Mine, and Ours, played her daughter. And how are you guys doing? How's it going? So she was stellar.
Henry Fonda was in that film as well, right?
Yes.
Working with the two of them together early in your career, what was that like?
Well, Steve, they're polar opposites. And back in the day, Lucy would go into her trailer, and nowadays, no actor stays on the set anymore. They go to their trailer, back then, every actor stayed on you had a chair, you stayed on the set, and you just stayed until you were called. And Henry was trying to quit smoking, so he was doing needlepoint. So he'd sit on the set, but he was a totally different kind of actor. He wasn't trying to do Lucy. He wasn't trying to do broad comedy. He was so centered and so real. And I just remember a scene where I was, reading the script, and there was a big speech he had when our first scene where he gets up and all his kids, he's going off to work, and he's in his uniform. He was in the Navy, and he had a speech at the door, and I just wondered, how is he going to do this? I mean, I was trying to figure out how would I approach that if I was playing that part, and I didn't have a clue. And he just got up, and he just stood there, and he looked at all of us, and he just told the truth. He just talked to us like a dad to his kids, made a point, and it was just magnificent. I said, that's a star. He just took stage and held the beats and connected with all of us. And he said, going to work. Boom, and off he went. But what a gent. I mean, what a fine gentleman. And basically, I think one time we were talking about acting, and he said, well, you just, you walk in the room, you hit your mark, you look them in the eye, and you tell them the truth. And that's acting. That's what you do. And then I'd seen, all his old John Ford movies like Young Mr. Lincoln and all the different things that he did. And Once Upon a Time in the West for Sergio Leone, where he was the villain. I mean, it was like, oh my God, I mean, he was a superb actor. Superb.
Let's shift decades for a moment. What about John Belushi?
Oh, John Belushi was a dream come true, I mean, and because it was right at the beginning of his career, right? Saturday Night Live had been on for 1 year, I think, when we shot Animal House. And the night we met, Judy, his wife, and he showed up and all the Deltas, all of our fraternity were there a week early, and John showed up, and we didn't know what to expect. We thought, oh my God, this is going to be some big star from NBC hit show and SNL. And I mean, he was like, he was so funny, and he was huge, and couldn't have been nicer. Couldn't go farther out of his way to make everybody right away go, I'm not that guy that's going to be a prick. He was funny. He didn't have to be funny to try to be funny. He was so gracious, because there's a thing about improv actors, which is you never say no. If you said, boy, that wall's high, I go, yeah, how are we going to get over? I agree, and go, and the next step, and so he's like that in life, John. And he accepted us. He was, and I'd never done a comedy before, and I was like nervous as hell. And he was very supportive and generous and gracious to me. And it was before, I think, the demons took hold, I mean, within a year, he had the #1 TV show. He was in the #1 hit movie in Hollywood, and he had the #1 house full of briefcase full of blues, I think it was, the #1 record album. And it was like, it's just so much. He was on tour with the Blues Brothers, and then he was making the Blues Brothers, and it just, and everybody wanted to party with him, because he was that character, They thought he was that character, and it seduced him. It was quite different by the time we got to 1941, about 3 years later, and you could see the sort of the ravages it had taken on him, and but I was one of his more stable friends in Los Angeles, and so we'd see each other occasionally off stage when we weren't shooting, and but oh God, he could be funny. I mean, he was so funny. I'd stand by the camera and just watch him in a scene I wasn't in, like when he was in the commissary eating his stealing food and eating sandwiches and stuff, and it was like, oh my God. And he improvised that. I mean, it was just, and they planted certain things for him, but it was all improv. And that's how I got into that movie. Was I had come to a point in my career, I was just playing these nice guy, kind of boring characters, and TV episodes like Adam 12 or this or that. And so I took improv classes, and that allowed me the freedom to let go and just to go with a flow with my partners in the scene. And that got me that part.
How did his death impact you? Were you surprised?
I can't say I was surprised. He seemed indestructible. He was so strong, and so physically strong, and powerful and funny, and we all knew his weaknesses, but you just felt, no, not like that. And I was off in Texas. I was playing Shakespeare. I was doing Petruchio in Taming of the Shrew, and somebody came backstage after the show and told me it happened, and it was like, it was so sad. It's such a loss, and because a lot of people don't know really who he was now, and he was such a special spirit. John Landis, the director of Animal House, said he's the Cookie Monster and Harpo Marx together. That it's that, and that's who he is. He hardly had any dialogue in the movie. It was all physical comedy, and it was a treasure. It was a treasure and a pleasure to know him and work with him, and we just lost his wife, Judy, and she was lovely too, because she did everything she could to keep him on the straight and narrow, but to stay with him, and to be there for him.
How did it impact Hollywood at the time?
I think we were stupid, you know, back in the late 70s and early 80s. Cocaine was everywhere, and it was like, I remember first trying it, and it was like, this isn't bad for you. This, oh my God, this isn't bad for you. Oh my God, how could this not be bad for you?
I feel so great.
I know, my heart's going like, but I think it was the beginning of the end, because it was like John's death was sort of the harbinger of that. This is not okay. You know, this one is. It's not like okay, you're smoking a joint or something, and you're gonna fall asleep, or you're gonna watch. You know, you're gonna eat a bunch of food or something. It's not. This is a dangerous drug. This is not a good thing, and it led him down a path towards worse. And I think that was the first time everybody realized, like, when you see your friends dropping at 33, like we lost Doug Kenny, or prior to that, who was the creator of Caddyshack and Animal House and the National Lampoon, and he died at 33, perhaps a victim of the same kind of excess, you know.
It just seems, though, in Hollywood, you go through these cycles, you know. Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
We'll be back for more in a moment. Hey, you directed Meghan Markle.
Yes. Yeah.
And?
She was great. I mean, she was lovely. I believe she was engaged at the time to someone, and she, you know...
someone other than Harry? Hey, you directed Meghan Markle.
Yes.
In the first episode of our first season of Suits.
Yes. Yeah.
And?
She was great. I mean, she was lovely. I believe she was engaged at the time to someone, and she, you know...
someone other than Harry?
Other than Harry.
Oh, okay.
Somebody else. And I loved doing Suits. It was so much fun. I mean, that was a great cast. Patrick Adams was... I had known him as a photographer, I think. Mike, I don't know if you introduced me to Patrick, but I'd met him where he came and did a photo shoot with me and took pictures of me. And then he started, you know, and he was an actor. He was hustling, and he was so lovely in that show. And they just had a rhythm and a thing and a pace to, and they understood the material, and the material was really well written. And I had a great time doing that show. Yeah, I loved working, and she was lovely. You know, she was also very bright and a good actor, and would listen to the director, and if I had a note or anything, and you know, took it, try it, and if it worked, great. If it didn't, okay, don't dump it. Go on, go with what you went with.
So tell me, what made you decide to write the book, first of all?
You know, the real story was I started to write a book because I'm a big Hollywood buff, and I grew up reading books. And there was one of my favorites was by Algene Harmitz called "The Making of the Wizard of Oz," and she just went through all the archives at MGM and from every department, and she had all the notes and everything. Script was in there, and the casting process, and wardrobe, and hair, and makeup, and special effects, everything, and then the shooting of it. And so I wanted to do that about the making of Animal House, because it was a core group of people on that movie as I stepped away from it, with Ivan Reitman and John Landis, and Doug Kenny was the creator of the National Lampoon and wrote Animal House and Caddyshack before his premature death, and Harold Ramis. And all of them sort of changed the shape of comedy in movies. So I started to write that book. And the publisher said, well, that's great, but we'd love if you would talk about your career, because you worked with Lucille Ball and Bob Hope and Jackie Gleason and all these different people.
Name dropper.
Yeah. And so it was expanded. And so it covers Animal House, but it covers also sort of the journey from, gosh, you know, I think I started acting in 1961. So just as anecdotal stories and there's a segment in it called Hollywood Boot Camp where I talk about the things they don't teach you in acting school and they don't teach you in boot camp, in movie, film school, and the sort of the rough and tumble of it all. So I just wanted to try and pave the way for people who are interested in acting, writing, directing, and just what this business is really like, sort of when you get down on the gridiron.
It's funny, with Ivan's background, his son, Jason,
Yes.
is now doing, or just finished directing, the Saturday Night Live film
Yes.
that came out, a week ago or so.
Have you seen it?
No, I'm dying to see it.
I am dying to see. He's a wonderful, wonderful director.
Yes, he is.
And
he's a nice guy, too. I interviewed him once.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
I've met him a few times. He's great, and really, and Ivan was too. I mean, Ivan had set up Animal House so he could direct it, and because he'd made Cannibal Girls, a movie in Canada, and he thought, okay, then he developed this script and he went through a lot of the problems of getting it developed, and he thought, oh, this would be my break. And the studios just said, no, not you, no. And then they got John Landis, and Ivan. Once the movie started to gain traction at the studio before it came out, they realized they had a hit on their hands. They loved it. John Landis got a deal. Matty Simmons of the Lampoon got a deal. Harold Ramis and Ivan Reitman got and Doug Kenny got a deal. Reitman, they just said, well, if you ever come up with something, just give us a call. So he said, the producer gets no respect, so you've got to direct. So he developed Meatballs, that script for Bill Murray to do. And the day Animal House opened, he couldn't come to the premiere because he was shooting Meatballs the first day. He was waiting for Bill Murray, hopefully, to show up, and he wasn't sure that he was, and he did.
You have such a rich history in Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad that you've decided to, do this book on the making of Animal House.
Thank you.
And I read The Making of the Wizard of Oz several times.
Oh, you have?
That's my favorite movie of all time.
Oh, my God.
And she had so many great stories in there.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was. About how originally in the books by L. Frank Baum, the slippers were really silver. And Louis B. Mayer said, if we're shooting this in Technicolor, we're going to have red shoes,
Well, and there were 3 directors on that movie. And Victor Fleming was the same director who did both The Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind in the same year, and no one even knows of him now. And Victor Fleming used to sign the script. His name was directed by, and then his name would appear on the screen. That's how big he was, a big a star. But it was a wonderful movie.
Yeah, it is. And Richard Thorpe was one of the directors. And he had her looking all blonde, Dorothy.
Oh, right.
Long blonde hair and very made up. Who was it? What director? Was it George Cukor who came in?
It was Cukor came in and said, lose the blonde hair.
Yes. Get the makeup off. Yeah.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he was also on Gone with the Wind for a while.
He was fired from Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Gable and he didn't get along, I guess.
Right. Didn't like the fact that he was gay.
Right.
Anyway, be that as it may, homophobia has been around forever.
Oh, my God.
So tell me, why did you decide, first of all, to write the book?
Well,
and I love the title. It makes you sound like you're a politician.
It's a line from Animal House that my character has, damn glad to meet you. Hi, Eric Stratton Rush, Chairman, damn glad to meet you. Welcoming the pledges to the fraternity party. But, as a kid, what happened for me was, my parents split up when I was 5 or 6, and it was a shock. It was just shattered my world, and I used to go and hide out in the movies and spend all day Saturday and Sunday watching movies. And back in the day when you could just stay and watch the movies over and over and over, and there were double bills and then Saturday matinees for kids and stuff. And it always made me feel safe there because things always worked out. In the Saturday serials, they'd get the characters into a situation from which there was no escape, and then they'd get them out. And to me, that was what life was about. And so I sought relief from my, broken home in theater. I got in some little theater, and then my first job on TV, I was 12, in a show called Window on Main Street with Robert Young the year after he did Father Knows Best. And I just walked on that set, and it was like I found my family. I felt so at home. I felt so wonderful there, you know, and it was like, I still feel that when I'm on a set. I have never, you know, it was just, people were so kind and gracious and wonderful to me, and I got a chance to step outside myself and the pain I was going through as a kid, and be somebody else, you know, which is a treat, you know, so I'm still blessed and fortunate to be and grateful to still be doing it.
Who pointed you in the direction of this career? I mean, at 5 or 6, somebody has to point you in the direction.
You know what? It was just by accident. I mean, my first vivid memory of watching a performance and at the Lorena Theater in not far from here in Sherman,
which is now a bookstore.
Right, of course. Was watching Charles Lawton in Witness for the Prosecution, a Billy Wilder film, and with Marlene Dietrich and Tyrone Power and Elsa Lanchester, and watching Charles Lawton, I was always fascinated watching anybody who could do something extremely well, a bricklayer, a carpenter, anybody who could just boom, 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 you know, whatever they did, if they did it really well. And I watched him, and I just was mesmerized. He was so precise and so good, and having so much fun with it. And I was enamored with that. And I really wanted to learn what he did and what he was doing. And I think that's when I started reading biographies and stuff. And so that was the first thing I saw. I mean, I don't know that I really wanted to be an actor, but I did. Once I did it in class a couple of times, and I enjoyed it. I got a laugh. You know, it's kind of fun.
It's nice getting a laugh. Isn't it funny though when you think back or the experiences you had and the movies you watched early on? Today, before coming over here, I had an old Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Oh my
I was
gosh.
watching, and who was in this one little TV show? It was Walter Matthau. Harry Morgan, Robert Vaughn.
Oh my God!
And they're all in this show. Joanne Moore, was that her name?
Yeah.
Who's Tatum O'Neal's mother and Ryan O'Neal's wife at one time.
Okay.
It was incredible. It was a half-hour black and white show, and you just don't think of that kind of talent coming together, but it does.
Oh yeah, it was amazing how everybody did TV in those days, you know, and it was especially on the Hitchcock shows. I mean, my God, those were
right,
the golden age.
Yeah. When is your book coming out? It's in November, right?
Yes, November 12th. Damn glad to meet you. My 7 decades in the Hollywood trenches, and it's not quite 7, 6.5, but I'd say I round it up. But it'll be out November 12th, and it was so much fun.
What am I going to learn from it?
Well,
I have a lot to learn, so.
I'm not so sure. I think you've seen a lot.
Oh, yeah.
It's sort of a primer of the mistakes I made. I try to own up to the stupidity, and because out of ignorance and youthfulness and arrogance, and I copped to it, and a bad first marriage, and I don't, and really why I started studying. I was doing a show at Universal, and acting just sort of came natural for me. I never really didn't understand it, but usually the emotion would generally be there for me, and then I had a scene where I was supposed to break down and cry and be just distraught that I had been responsible for the death of this young man, and I was lying over his body, and I couldn't do it. I mean, it was just, and I faked it, and it made it even worse. I mean, just, one of those, and it was like, I went home on my drive home. I was so ashamed and so angry, and I just said, if I'm either going to quit doing this, or I'm going to learn how to do this.
Learn
right.
to do it better.
Yeah. And fortunately, I was during my period of being under contract to Universal. I was one of the last contract actors at Universal. And I was there for 4 years, and so I got paid every week, and I took dance, ballet, voice, Shakespeare, method acting, Stanislavski, Strasberg, and I took anything and everything I could do, and I did a lot of the classics, and they were all instrumental in sort of gaining an approach to the work. So, and I think that all that Stanislavski ever, the great teacher of acting, was he went around and asked all the famous actors in the Russian theater, how do you do it? What's your technique? And then he combined that into his book, and that was An Actor Prepares. And technique is there for when you can't organically do something. When it's like, I don't know, so you dig into it and you use your technique to help you get through it. And but those are the things I think that hopefully that are instrumental in the book on how to, and it's a business. Get the right agent. Make sure you have somebody taking care of you that cares about you, and that's a good agent. And so, in addition to all the acting, or the directing, or the writing, or whatever the creative thing that drives you, you also have to be responsible for having somebody really good handle your career and get you where you want to go. And if they're not doing that, and you always have to keep us. I was always taking lunches and going to lunch with different agents and managers and meeting them and saying, oh, maybe that if this doesn't, that would help. And and I talk about people that hurt me and because they're not all doing it for the best reasons. Sometimes people. People
you don't have to tell me.
I mean, it's a full contact sport, but if you're hip to that going in, and that going in, that's sort of the core of the book is about that. Just beware, and know how you're going to get hit. It's now you're down, you got to get up. Now what? Your plan is good, and what did they say? It was Mike Tyson said, your plan for the fight is good until you get knocked down, and now you got to get up and revise the plan
and bite somebody's ear.
And, yes, get a face tattoo. But it's true, you're going to get knocked on your butt, and how do you get bad reviews? You get, what are you going to do to continue on, and turn it around?
The thing I probably my first exposure to you as an actor was Johnny Quest. I loved Johnny Quest. It was such a great cartoon and kind of an adult cartoon for kids.
Yes.
And I was in an age where it was very popular.
Yes.
How did you ever get that role? The voice of Johnny?
It was one of those things I went in. I mean, I knew what Hanna-Barbera was. I mean, because all my favorite shows were done by Joe Hanna and Joe Barbera and Bill Hanna.
And Daryl Hannah.
And Daryl Hannah. And so I had a commercial agent that sent me out on voiceovers. So this was a voiceover audition. It was one of 10 auditions I might have had that week. My mother drove me. I was 15. I went in. Joe Barbera was there. He came out, met me in the lobby, took me around, showed me the whole layout, how they had the animators down. They were drawing, the Flintstones and the Jetsons and, Rough and Ready and all the different shows they did. And showed me the recording studio, and he showed me the drawings that they had for Johnny Quest that they were based on. I think Doug Wiley was the artist who created them. And I was like, wow, this
cool.
is great. I mean, I did the audition. I'd never really done much voice acting, so I think I probably was too big, and then he just brought it down. He said, just be real, just be, because there's a fine edge there between being just monotone or just real, or cartoon real, or the Flintstones, real. And so I did the audition. He was very patient, and that was that. And I thought, oh, okay. You know, it was just another audition. And then like 3 months later, I'd forgotten about it, and they just said, "Oh, yeah, that show. You're gonna do the show, that cartoon show." I thought, "Wow, okay." You know, that was great. And then I got to. That was an adventure because I got to work with so many great actors who all came up doing radio. You know, Dawes Butler,
Right.
Don Messick, Alan Reed, June Foray, Mel Blanc. Mel Blanc, you know, he ran Warner Brothers Studio on his own. He was Bugs Bunny and Porky Pig, and he was everything. And they were some of the best actors I think I've ever worked with because they could embody. Mel would come in and create a dog's voice for one episode that had a personality, and it just felt so real. I just like, how do you do that? You know, I mean, what is that? I mean, I had trouble just being Johnny. You know, I had this little kind of tiny voice. I sounded like like a you know, pubescent boy, but Joe was great. He was couldn't have been nicer to me. He after Johnny wasn't renewed, he hired me to be in Young Sinbad, another series, and Samson Jr., Young Samson, I think, Sinbad Jr., Young Samson, and Space Ghost. And so, and in Young Samson, I think he allowed me to write 2 episodes. So he was always very positive and very encouraging, and I was fortunate enough to be around people like that, and I was always looking for a mentor or a guidance, you know, somebody to help me in that way. And he was great. He let me. So I wrote 2 scripts, and I just felt like I was part of that. And I'd go around the studio at lunchtime and just watch these guys, you know, draw their cells. And back then, they threw the cells away because they were a fire hazard. And I have one left. Joe gave me a beautiful animated cell. I collect them too. But that was my first taste of being quote a star. I mean, it was like the network was like made a fuss and sent me out to promote it, you know. And yeah, it was. But nobody knew it was me. You know, I mean, it was because it was a cartoon.
And Mel Blanc has one of the great tombstones in Hollywood. It says, "That's all, folks."
Oh
It's
my gosh.
It's really great.
Oh, I didn't know that. It's wonderful.
Yeah. We'll be back in a moment. Hey, you played the VP on
Yes.
West Wing?
Yes, it was an honor. It was a pleasure, and it was one of the treasures of my life to share that experience. You know, Brad Whitford used to joke to me. He said, "You know, the vice president is a heartbeat away from running the country, and you're a heartbeat away from being a regular in this show."
Hey, you played the VP on
Yes.
West Wing?
Yes, John Hoynes. Yes.
What insight has that given you into our political climate? Any?
Well, I mean, I became a student of politics, and Doris Kearns Goodwin, who was a wonderful writer.
Right.
And so that was the first book that I got on that set. Was they gave me her book about LBJ, because really the guy I played was sort of like LBJ. He was the guy that should have been president, except this other guy comes in and takes my job, and you know, and there were those feelings, and it was the best writing I've ever had. Aaron Sorkin, you know, I mean, he would outdo himself each week, and one of the most superlative casts I've ever worked with, you know, I mean, and it just got better and better and better, and I was recurring. I only did like 6, 7 shows a season, you know, but I was always so happy to be there. But I was on my toes when I came in, because you did not change one word of Aaron's script. On a TV show, generally you have one script supervisor who corrects your, you know, oh no, you said the instead of an. And I said, oh, okay. And on his show, there were 2 script supervisors. And I got a note from one that said, oh, it's not a period, it is a semicolon. And I went, oh, okay. That's how much detail Aaron Sorkin gave, because he's from the theater, and he deserved it and earned it. And he was right. You don't want a full stop. You want to keep going, And so, because there was a rhythm and a pace to it. And a lot of writers think that they can write that good, and some can, but I don't think I've ever met anybody as good and as consistently talented as Aaron Sorkin.
And he's won several Emmys, I believe, for that show, didn't he?
Oh,
time and time again.
Time and time again, and nominated for Oscars. Now he's writing and directing, and the sky's the limit with him.
You were nominated for that show, weren't you?
Yeah, I was nominated twice and got beat by Charles Dutton twice.
Well.
For 2 other shows he did, but it was an honor, it was a pleasure, and it was one of the treasures of my life to share that experience. Brad Whitford used to joke to me. He said, the vice president is a heartbeat away from running the country, and you're a heartbeat away from being a regular in this show.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
And tell me one other thing. You bought with a friend or a partner the magazine National Lampoon.
Yes.
When it was fallen on hard times.
Yes.
Almost bankrupted.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was hell. I mean, I couldn't wait to. I mean, we were very idealistic about it. My partner Dan Grodnick and I, and we wanted to raise $5 million, bring the magazine out to Los Angeles, get a core group of writers, not unlike they do with Saturday Night Live, and then use them to write the magazine and then to spin off TV shows and make movies. And we had a hard time getting the $5 million. And then finally the magazine was in such trouble that we had to make a deal, and we took a deal from a guy that wasn't really the most ethical person, perhaps, and he didn't really care about the magazine. He just wanted it for his own purposes. So it went down from there, and it was a heartbreak that we couldn't pull off what we wanted to. But it was also at a time where I began to realize magazines were having a hard time. And as we know now, there are fewer and fewer magazines and books, and people just don't read that. They read online now. So, that was prior to that kind of transition being able to be made. But it was a heartbreak because I was so deeply involved in it, and I would go to the office every day, and we made a deal here, we make a deal there, and this guy we partnered with would blow up the deal to renegotiate the terms of our deal, So it was just this. I got to tell you, it was like working with, the mob or something. The people were just not nice. The business people would cut your throat just to cut your throat, just because they could, not because they gained anything. So I was so pleased to go back to Hollywood, where I knew what I was getting into, with people, and they were more reputable, I think, than the business world was much more rough and tumble than I imagined it to be.
How do you feel about getting older? I'll go first. I hate it.
Well, I think the best. Well, it's Clint Eastwood said it best. I think he said, "Don't let the old man in." He just said he wakes up every day and he just says, don't let the old man in. Just keep going, And I find that true. Just if the knee gives out, replace the knee. And then I try and stay as physical and healthy as possible. And thankfully, my wife Elizabeth is so lovely. Insists that I eat fairly well. And so I just, and I think you got to laugh. You just got to laugh and enjoy it as much as possible. And I mean, what else? What other choice do we have? It's
pushing up daisies, I suppose.
Yeah. As long as you're on the right side of the grass, I think we're having a good time.
Yeah, I suppose. You co-starred in Van Wilder with Ryan Reynolds.
Yes.
He's now become,
oh my God,
this businessman,
Yeah, he's huge.
in addition to being a heartthrob and making a lot of money.
He's so smart. When I met him, he was doing what, Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza, or there was that show he did, and this was his first shot at being in a movie, carrying a movie, and he was so studious about comedy. He wanted to hear all about Fletch. He wanted to hear about Animal House. He asked me so many questions about comedy, and he was he was a student, and he was so good on camera. I mean, he was such a good improviser and he was so funny. He knew where the jokes were and couldn't have been more gracious. And I just saw Deadpool and Wolverine. He's fabulous. And it's one of those things that, you know, Belushi had it, Chevy does it, Chevy Chase and John Candy, and, you know, some of the SCTV people and Saturday Night Live people, they go big. But if a bad actor goes big, it's just corny and hammy and it's horrible. But it takes a great actor to go big like that. And Ryan can do it and pull it off, and he's got a great mind for business. You know, I mean, it's amazing. He really he's a brand, you know, and he and his wife seem to handle it very, very well. And that's the transition now, I think, that movie stars can make. But he also seems like a nice guy, you know. I mean, I haven't seen him in a while, but he's always joking around about Hugh Jackman and you know, and he seems to be doing it all for the right reasons.
I conducted an interview with him. I forget the name of the movie now. I'm at that stage of aging. Betty White was there, Sandra Bullock was there, and Ryan Reynolds. And you ask a question and then let them go.
Oh, my God.
Because they were so funny together. And they're just playing off each other.
Oh, that was the movie that went up to Alaska, wasn't it, or something? It was a rom-com and
I was in a soundstage interviewing them.
Yes. But, I mean, it was, yeah, I mean, and Sandra Bullock's great. I mean, yeah, but he can hold his own with everyone. I mean, and he gets it and is earned it.
Two other legends I'd like to ask you about, husband and wife, Mel Brooks and Bancroft.
Oh, my God.
You did To Be or Not to Be with them.
Yes. Well,
I would imagine that was a lot of fun.
Yes. It was, what a treasure.
Isn't that the one where they did Sweet Georgia Brown in Polish?
Yes.
It was very funny.
Yes. And oh my God, it's, you know, Mel is very intense and funny all the time, and demanding, and Anne is just was the loveliest, dearest, most committed actor. I'll never forget a scene where I'm an underground. It was in Poland, and I'm an underground Polish agent pretending to be a Nazi, and so I'm undercover and getting information from the Nazis and trying to save Poland or something. And I'm in love with Anne, and I think we were having an affair. And so anyway, I'm at her place. I'd been in England, and I came back, and I'm in bed, and Mel thinks it's her in bed, and he gets in and starts snuggling me. So I had a snuggle scene with Mel Brooks in bed, and then my other favorite scene was I think it was the next morning where I wake up and Mel's in the middle, and Ann and I are on each side, and it was one of those scenes we just did in one take, and it's probably 2 pages long, and I say something, she says something, I say something, Mel goes what, and it's back and forth. It was like tennis at Wimbledon, and it was just, you know, they pulled me up. I mean, it was just so much fun to play with them, you know, to play off of them and have them play off of me, and it was a treat. And the greatest thing I saw Mel do, and the most generous thing, was at the wrap party. He he got up and was making a speech, and he wanted to thank each and every one of the crew, and he mentioned, no notes, he mentioned each and every member of the crew by name and job and thanked them and then made a joke about them. And I'm thinking, oh, God, here it comes. Now he's starting with the cast, and he's working his way up into the cast. And this is Jose Ferrer, oh, okay, and Charles Dern, oh, okay. Oh, and Tim Matheson, oh, my gosh. And Tim Matheson, well, I mean, he's so handsome. He's such a handsome man. I mean, he's a very good actor, but I mean, damn, he is so handsome. Tim, and how do you, I just look at you. I mean, really, I kept waiting for it and waiting for it, and he says, and he didn't say it quite as nicely as I'm going to say it, but he says, thank you for not sleeping with my wife. And the place just went to pieces. I mean, but he was that's Mel. I mean, and Anne was this Italian from Jersey, or the Bronx or Jersey, and she could give as good as she got, you know, she could stand up to Mel. And evidently some guy was hitting on her at a party when they first got married, and he says, "What, Anne Bancroft, the Tony winner, the Oscar winner, I mean, what are you doing with Mel Brooks?" And she said, Mel, he wants to know what I'm doing with you. And she points between his legs and says, "Show him, Mel." I mean, she just wouldn't miss a beat. She was just as tough and funny as he was, but adorable, and just couldn't have been lovelier.
Same could be said of you, Tim.
Well,
I've really enjoyed this. Thanks for sitting down with us.
Oh, Steve, this has been so much fun. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's been fun for me, too. I hope they sit me next to you if we ever had dinner together.
Yes. And
keep going.
At the Emmys, hopefully, sometime.
Yeah, oh, yeah, that'd be
There
nice.
we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Still Here Hollywood is a production of the Still Here Network. All things technical run by Justin Zangerly. Theme music by Brian Sanashin. And executive producer is Jim Lichtenstein.